One of the things that makes English difficult to learn is because there are many components of words that are similar to each other, but have very different functions. So, special accuracy is needed to understand each function and how to use the word to make it easier for us to learn other things. This time, we will discuss 3 words that have similarities to each other, namely whose and who. How often do you see that word? All of them come from the same pronoun, which is who. Then, what distinguishes one from the other? We will discuss them one by one thoroughly on this occasion. First of all, we will start with a discussion about whose. What does the word mean? Before we study it further, please note that whose is a contraction word or abbreviation. The original form of whose is who is, or it can be who has. Who itself is a subject pronoun in the interrogative form. We cannot interpret who is and who has just like that, but must refer to the entire sentence that holds it. For example, who is responsible for this? Who is your partner? Elsa is the student who is going to be performing. My mother is the woman who is standing over there. Next, we will discuss whose. We also cannot interpret the word whose just like that without discussing the entire sentence it contains. What is clear, whose is a pronoun used to ask or mention ownership. Let's go into an example of its application. When someone asks whose shoes are these, then that person asks about who the owner of the shoes is being pointed out to or is carrying. The way to answer that is to say they are mine. That's mine, or those are Ryan's. That's Ryan's, for example. More or less, when someone asks using the word whose, he is curious about who is the owner of the object in question. Whose car is that? Whose coat are you wearing? Whose phone is lost? And when whose is placed in the middle of a sentence, it also acts as a pronoun that states ownership. Alyssa is the girl whose hair is blonde. Erica is the person whose phone is lost. I don't know whose car is that. It is different from whose, which is followed by an erratic word order. Whose is always followed by a noun or noun phrase. Because the two words have similar sounds, the easiest way to distinguish from each other when you hear from others is to examine what words are present right after. For example, when what we catch is speaking, we can be sure that the speaker says who is speaking, not who's speaking. Because speaking is a verb or verb. But if what we hear is, bag is this? Then the speaker will say whose bag is this? Not whose, who has bag is this? Because bag is a noun. Actually, it could be whose, who has comes followed by a noun or noun phrase, like who has any idea. However, very rarely who has placed at the beginning of a sentence is used in the form of whose. And if it is located in the middle of a sentence, then the way to distinguish whose and whose followed by nouns is to examine the sentence structure. Example, I don't know whose car is that. Whose plus noun plus be, I don't know who any car to borrow. Who plus determiner, article plus noun. Whose in the first sentence cannot be replaced by whose, who has, except if the sentence is changed to I don't know who is that car. However, the word own is more appropriate in the sentence than has to state that I don't know who owns the car. Whose in the second sentence cannot be replaced by whose, except when the sentence structure is changed to I don't know whose car to borrow. Finally, we will discuss who. Whom is an object pronoun that refers to who is the object in an activity. Whom also has an equivalent position with me, you, us, him and so on. So, if someone asks whom was Amanda talking to? The answer could be, it was me, it was him, or it was Ryan and so on. Consider another example. It was Jenny whom Sarah had gone with. To whom it may concern. Brian is the guy whom Ellen really likes.